Right, we're good to go.
All right, perfect.
So just give a countdown and yeah, go when you're ready.
All right, sure thing. All right. So this is die any percent no hard mode. And I'll explain why it's no hard mode and what the deal is as soon as I start. Okay, so starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. All right, so and in the call with me as well, I have a co-developer of the game, Lordimus. He's
Hello.
pretty awesome. Anyway, so this is die any percent no hard mode. Basically, it's a collectathon. I like to think of it as a cross between something like Kirby and Super Meat Boy, and you'll see like their wall jumps. It's basically a precision platformer. And I might not be able to talk much during this because it takes a bit of focus. But basically, I'm just collecting these pigments, and the more pigments I collect, the more levels I unlock.
So there is no blue blast glitch.
Oh my goodness, that was bad.
By what he says. But yes, as you so you'll notice when we start each level's gray, and you'll notice in the top right you've got 5 little circles with eyes there. Those are the pigments, and as you rescue those in an individual level, the color will start coming back, and in the world, such as this purple world, when you go back to the hub, as you collect more and more in this world, then you'll start to see color coming back to the hub as well. So that's kind of the aesthetic theme of the game. In the beginning, you got a cutscene where you see these some evil wizards that we call necrolytes, and they come down and they steal all the color from the world, and then Q comes and he's going to save the day by restoring it. So this is the first world, purple world. So basically, he's just gonna collect all 5. You'll see some checkpoints. If you get to a checkpoint and then you die, then you've collected all the pigments up to that spot, you don't lose them. But any pigments you collect after that checkpoint, you'll lose if you die and have to come back to it. The run does feature some intentional deaths, but we won't get to those probably until the scroll levels.
No. Well, I've already had one unintentional death, and it was pretty dumb, actually. It was, yeah, you're right. It was totally intentional. Yeah. And here's an example of an auto scroller actually in the game. But now, as I know, probably most of the people in the chat are speedrunners themselves, and you're thinking to yourself, "Oh, auto scrollers, geez." But yeah, these auto scrollers are actually pretty awesome, and there's actually some speed tech involved here. So, like right there's an intentional death. We basically got ahead of the screen to basically death warp, or not death warp, but take an intentional death and scroll the screen pretty far forward actually, and that saves seconds upon seconds throughout this run.
Yeah, so some people complain about they don't like auto scrollers because it kind of limits you as how fast you can finish a level, and there's a lot of waiting around. But in this one, if you kill yourself, like you said, you pop to the next checkpoint, so you can pretty much go as fast as you want. And forgive me if I say something behind the stream a bit.
Yeah, I got you.
A good 5 or 6 seconds, but
Ooh, whoops.
Also, you'll notice him. So there's only a couple mechanics to the game. It's a pretty simple game mechanic-wise of what you can do. There's jumping, there's wall jumping, pretty standard. And then there's float, which I wanted to mention because you'll see him floating, which you have infinite use of. You can float any time, all the time, as much as you want. You can tap it and hold it down, whatever you want. But he's going to be tapping it quite a bit. It's a control thing mainly, but also gives you a way to kind of have more control over your horizontal and vertical movement.
Yep.
So as you hold down float, you're going to go much slower, but you also, of course, will travel farther. But tapping it kind of gets you somewhere in the middle between just free falling and floating. So a lot of these strats involve very precise and just getting into a spot as quickly as possible, which can only be done by spamming float, which is kind of neat.
So this is the easy part of the game. This game gets brutally difficult as it gets going, and I'm just warning you, there will be a bunch of deaths later on.
So here he just took an intentional death a few seconds ago. He does that to get the right cycle here. So this game is aimed towards speedrunners. So anytime you die, everything in the level basically resets. Any monster, any bullet, well, not the bullets, but the bullets will stop firing while you're dead. So basically, anytime you take a death, you get a reset, and you know exactly what's going to happen when you start moving again. So in that case, back on the previous level, he died, and then he was able to get over the bullets and in the minecart over around, hit the switch in a very much quicker fashion than he could have normally. So intentional deaths are usually A, on the scroll levels, as we mentioned, and B, just to get a better cycle on things.
That was a pretty dumb death right there.
That was a cycle reset death.
Yeah, it was. That's what we'll call it. Whoops. Come on. There we go. That jump isn't necessarily safe, but I wanted to get it anyway. Okay, and then you have these levels. Wow, that's not what you're supposed to do. Then you have these levels, which are the challenge levels. So for every 20 bits of dust here you collect, you get 1 pigment. And of course there are 5 pigments in every level. And we don't need to collect them all. We only need to collect 50 to unlock the boss and advance to the next world. I think there are 140, if I recall, in every world. Come on, man. But we only need 50 of them. And one thing I didn't mention was hard mode. We do not do hard mode in this category. You can theoretically complete the game faster with hard mode on, or like with basically every level has a hard mode with like added obstacles and no checkpoints. You can collect 5 extra pigments from each hard mode level, but we're not doing that so that we can see more of the game, and it's just a better speedrun category, in my opinion, as well.
Yep, so basically, if you do the any percent without the no hard mode qualifier, then a lot of your run is just going to be doing the same level again, but with some more death added on, which is faster, definitely, but like you said, a lot more variety this way.
Yep, another thing about these...
No one's really running any percent.
Yeah. Another thing about these challenge levels is, as you saw on the last level, if you die, you have to start the entire thing over again because there aren't any checkpoints. Okay, so now we're going to face the boss, the vultures. These guys are basically, it's kind of like a bullet hell type boss. Bit of a change of pace from the platforming we've seen so far. Main objective here is to survive, and eventually the bullets will just kind of kill the vultures off.
So when you first start playing this level, it really does feel like bullet hell, and stuff just flying everywhere, and you're just trying to stay alive and cross your fingers until the vultures die. But as you get the hang of it, you can figure out where to position yourself,
yes,
like he's doing, where the vultures and the boss will actually fire their
bullets at
the other vultures and kill them off pretty quickly.
So for instance, for that bottom left one, I stood over here to the bottom right. For the bottom right one, I'm going to stand over to the bottom left, and they should ricochet back at him and kill him. And then I'll have the mage, or the necrolite, excuse me, shoot the last 2 at him, like that. And there's purple. This game's divided into 4 worlds. Purple, blue, green, aka yellow, and red.
Some say that green looks a little bit yellow.
Yeah,
but
it's
it's a monitor problem.
the boss is green. The boss is green at least.
The boss is more green. And I believe the island can help us name each track that we're going to be hearing.
Okay, so now we're gonna enter blue, which is basically a winter-themed world. Lots of ice. Thankfully, no ice physics, though.
Yeah, we certainly try to leave out some things that I personally found annoying in certain games. Other people may like them, but I'm not a fan of slipping and sliding around, and I'm also not a fan of water levels.
Thank you for that, by the way.
Q has no arms, so he cannot swim, so if you land in water in this game, it's automatic death. There's no swimming around water levels of any sort.
Okay, pretty clean blue one. A lot of these
So what
levels
he's
are
doing on... Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was just gonna say a lot of these levels are very long, a lot longer than purple.
So what he's doing with these flames is some of these torches are permanently on fire, and that will light you. And the color of the fire is completely irrelevant. It's just a cosmetic thing. But once you get lit on fire, then you have a certain amount of time, and you'll see Hugh start to... The fire particles will start lessening, and once it runs out, he's out. But you'll see these kind of extender torches, which are not lit. But if you're on fire and you run over them, then they will light and extend your way. So it's kind of like a mini fire checkpoint for you. And also you'll see some, like he just passed through a minute ago, there's these columns of ice, kind of blizzardy spinning vertical column. If you pass through that, it puts out your fire. And the last way that puts out your fire is if you hit float. So there's a lot of things going on with the fire mechanic, which adds some variety to the levels.
One thing I wanted to mention is you'll see me like wall jumping around spikes quite often in this game. That's actually really not as easy as it probably looks, because once you jump, or when you jump around spikes, you have to either press the opposite direction of the controller for a split second, or you can just basically like neutralize your position, or your position on the D-pad or joystick, whatever you use. I use D-pad personally, but you have to do that in order to get around those spikes, and the timing of it can be a little bit weird, and it takes a bit of getting used to.
Yeah, so it's a bit like, and I'm not a Boshi expert, but it's a bit like Boshi in that there's several different types of jumps. We don't have them named like they do, but you know, if you're holding the wall and if you hit jump, you'll jump off at a certain velocity. If you hold away from the wall, you'll jump off at a certain velocity. You hold towards it, same thing. So different sections will require you to jump in a different angle, and angle back or angle forward. And yeah, it's kind of hard to see with the untrained eye, but a lot of these are a lot of practice with just getting used to the controls and learning which jumps are required to hit which pigments and get around which spikes. Another thing, I don't think we've mentioned it yet, it's kind of a core to the game, is the wall jump is different than, well, I don't know any other game that does this, but we have a mechanic where you can't skip to the wall, or you can't stick to the wall permanently. You hold on for a little over half a second, and you free fall. I didn't like the idea of just holding on and kind of chilling out like in Mega Man or whatever. We wanted kind of a more fast-paced game. So
Super Meat Boy, I think, does that.
I don't remember if Super Meat Boy hangs on indefinitely or not. But with this, you kind of have a sense of urgency. Like I landed on the wall and I need to get off it again really quick, and I can't just hang out here, but I can certainly use it to parkour around. And that was a nice end of that level. Those sequence of jumps are pretty tricky at first, but they're really good practice for later as well. And you'll notice he was on fire, so he couldn't float at all. It's strictly.
Yep. Anytime you're on fire and you float, yeah, you will lose the fire. Oh yeah, you have a self-destruct button as well. I don't think we mentioned that. So you'll see me like in these auto-scrolling levels, you'll see me self-destruct. And I'm trying to it takes about a second and a half or so to actually have it take effect. So you'll see me timing me hitting the checkpoint pretty much exactly when I die from the self-destruct in order to maximize time save.
Yep. And actually next patch we cut that in half.
Oh my goodness.
The self-destructs are going to be much faster and easier to time on these kind of things. So yeah, in summary, the only real joystick keyboard mechanics, the only controller mechanics are jump, wall jump, float, self-destruct, and drop you through the one-way platforms. Just very basic stuff. We didn't add any crazy gimmicks or anything. It's all just basic platforming. On this level, you'll notice in the beginning he jumped into the minecart and jumped back out. There's a timing thing where you can't just ride it, and it's kind of a precursor to some of these later levels. The minecarts are placed in such a way where they're not fast enough just on their own if you just jump in them naturally and ride them over. So it's kind of a hint for later levels when you need to hit a minecart and then run around and do something else, and then come back to it, let it build its momentum up before you jump into it again. And we'll see those again later.
Interesting thing about the end of this level as well that I'm going through right now. Every time I talk, I die. Interesting thing about this, and this goes to show like how in touch Lort and the other co-developer Manern are, how basically in touch with in touch they are with the speedrun community of this game. So basically, speedrunners were not necessarily complaining, but like making note of how slow that minecart was. It was faster to actually, in an older patch, it was actually faster to go to a challenge level and get the last pigment there. But we don't do that anymore because basically Lort heard the anguish of the runners and went ahead and patched it so that it was faster. The minecart was faster. So that level became faster and the run became faster as well.
There is still like a 1 second wait, but before it was about 11 seconds, and that was not fun for anybody. So just no one ever did that part of the game.
Oh yeah, if you time this jump correctly there, you'll see me, I took an intentional death right before making that jump. And what that allowed me to do was time that so that it was consistent, so I could actually skip part of the level there.
And there's Manern. So about Backcountry Games, that's the name of that's us, that's our company. Yeah, it's just a two-man team, and Manern just joined the channel. So if you have any questions about the art or soundtrack or boss fights or just anything, direct those to him. I did most of the level design and coding. So that's kind of generally how we split things up, but there were still some intermingling of responsibilities wherever. But he's awesome, and happy to have him as a partner, and I think he made an awesome soundtrack, and we're really glad with how things came out. This is the first soundtrack he's made. So if and when I can talk him into doing another project, I am convinced we'll have an even better one next time around.
Okay, so if I play my cards right in this level, that's not playing the cards right. every single time I talk, I die. Like it's rule, it's law. If I don't mess up this level too badly, I can actually skip doing any other challenge levels because I have 45 pigments. If I can get the last 5 pigments here, the ending of this level is the most challenging part, though.
Oh, that's right, Marin. Yeah, I was counting this one as the only one because it's kind of packaged as a soundtrack separately, and it's a full deal. But yeah, we also made before this, we made a completely unrelated game. It was kind of like a sci-fi spaceship shooting strategy game aimed at like iOS and whatnot. So nothing like this whatsoever.
And I died. Okay. So we're just gonna go get the last one in challenge. Oh, my bad. We're just gonna get the last one in challenge 4.
So yeah, the 80% no hard mode is not really done with no unintentional deaths at all. So a big part of it is knowing your contingency plans when you die and how many you need to make up to hit that 50, and where you need to go, and like the quickest way to get that done, both in routing in the hub and in which levels are going to give me, oh, I know I need 1, so challenge 3 gives me 1 really quickly or something like that. So oftentimes you'll see players, if they need 1 or 2 or 3, they'll know which level to go to and quickly just grab those 20, 40, 60, whatever dust and die and pop back out.
So I just pulled off a strat on Ice Golem, which is the boss of the Blue World. You can get farther than you're supposed to, actually. I was not supposed to do that. Whatever, it's fine. So I got a little farther than I was supposed to. I broke down an extra ice wall. Wow, that was close. Okay, and that actually allows you to skip a cycle. That was a pretty good boss. That was really close to death. And a pretty devastating one as well, since I was pretty deep in the level. Okay, so now we're going to move on to green. And green is where the game is going to start to take a turn. It's going to be pretty... it's going to be less obstacles and more like puzzle-based. It's weird. It's also where it starts to get pretty difficult. And then red is basically all out. So let's go. Maybe puzzle based is the wrong phrase for it, but
you certainly need to think more about each segment and how to get each pigment.
Yeah, it just seems very mazy, like a maze. Is mazy even a word? I don't even know. That particular pigment right there, if you don't get back up in time, you have to intentionally die in order to reset the level.
So in green, you've probably noticed each world introduces a different world mechanic, or a couple of them. Green, we've got in the very beginning, you'll see the mushrooms. So each mushroom has a matching mushroom somewhere else on the map, and they port between each other. You'll also see the moving platforms and the springboards. So springboards are pretty standard, moving platforms are pretty standard. The springboards do have If you just land on them, then they'll do a kind of a smaller jump. And if you hold jump while you hit them, then they'll spring you higher, and that's pretty common platforming mechanic, but works here too. And up here is a pretty tricky part.
There we go. It took long enough.
Yeah, that part's much harder than it seems, because if you're practicing this, unless you take an intentional death there, then you're practicing this and you come at it, it's really hard to guess what cycle you're on. You don't see the bullets before you get there. So a lot of speedrunners have difficulty at that section, and I think practicing that part is going to be a big difference in some runs.
That part there, we actually skipped that pigment. That's the only pigment we skip in the entire run. We actually get that back in challenge 1, I believe it is. Because it's slightly faster to get it there. It saves like 2 seconds or something. Okay. Alright, this level is where it noticeably starts to get more difficult. That was pretty good. I'll take a deathless spelunker all day. This one aptly names just one shot, because there are no checkpoints in this level.
And yeah, most of our level names have some sort of reference or meaning behind them. A lot of pop culture and book and movie music references, but also some descriptions like that, and we did get it in one shot. Nice. Dwight Schrute's favorite level.
Yeah, like I said, the auto scrollers in this game are not boring like a lot of other speed games are. This
is my
very
personal favorite green level.
Yeah, this level's very long.
I think I had the most fun making this one out of the green levels.
Do we have time for a donation by any chance?
Sure.
Well, I have $50 here from Bad Country Games.
Yo.
Saying, thanks to the folks at Speedrun to Change the World for putting together such an awesome lineup for an amazing charity. I'm honored we could be a part of it. So thank you very much.
Yes, sir. This is great. Had a lot of fun, and thanks for Tej for including me in the run. And
no problem at all,
I've been
dude.
looking forward to this for a while. Yeah.
I mean, I'm just glad to have you on commentary. I mean, I know you don't really know anything about this game, but it's fine. I mean, it's whatever.
I'm still learning. I mean, as we saw in the blue box earlier, I'm still learning anyways.
Seriously though, huge thank you to Backcountry Games.
So on this level, he starts off by, and this is what I was talking about earlier, the mine carts, where sometimes you need to hit them before you actually use them. So he hit the original mine cart, got it running, and then you saw him poured over in the mushroom, and it's already there coming back ready for him to get those pigments. I'm also not sure if we mentioned the timers, but it's been going on since purple, and you'll notice these yellow time switches, and they all map to one or more death walls, which are kind of, I guess they're more like death gates. So when you hit a timer, you have a certain amount of time until the gate closes. So you'll see a lot of hit the timer, rush to the gate, etc. Pretty simple.
Another thing I don't think we mentioned either are the mushrooms, the teleportation mushrooms.
I briefly did, but yeah.
Oh, I got you. But yeah, so in a lot of these green levels, and I think in some red levels as well, if I'm not positive, there are these mushrooms. That's the challenge, by the way, that we get the one pigment in. So we get one pigment, and it's really convenient that there's just a spike at the end of the 20th dust particle.
Yeah, it's the coolest one pigment. That one is confirmed an actual intentional death.
Yes.
This one's got an extended wall jumping section, which is pretty tough. Some of the challenge of these are not in the individual jumps themselves, but by just the endurance of them. So this level has two pretty long sections where you're just stuck in the air for quite a while and can't make a single mistake. Or you gotta start all over because it's a challenge level, but looks like he is gonna make it.
Yep, got it. I'm actually very content with the second half of that green. That was really good, actually.
And here we have the Slime King, everyone's favorite level.
Yes. This boss has been nerfed like, what, 16 times? Yeah,
probably not done. Well, it was released and it was buffed because some of these sections were just not here, so I added some more platforming sections, then it was too hard. There are too many fireballs. It's had almost as many updates as the Vultures have.
And the updates.
But yeah, this is one of the few sections in the game where there is RNG. So the boss is actually, you can tell he's set in his timing and his jumping, but he sends the same number of bullets each time, but they're slightly randomized in how much force he gives them. So they'll land a little bit different. So a big part of this strategy, and a new player will come in and sometimes you feel like, oh man, I just got cheated by RNG, and some of the timings and the landings do suck, but one of the strats and what Teach is really good at, and which is kind of hard to see here without knowing this fight, is he's positioning himself where he can actually see where the bullets are going to land, so he doesn't let RNG screw him over. And that's a big part of getting through this fight, otherwise it can be a very frustrating experience.
I think I died about 60 times on this boss in my casual playthrough. And I indeed also felt like I was getting cheated by RNG, but then I actually learned that, hey, that's, you know, there's not as much as I think there is, and you can actually do this consistently.
Yeah, with all the bosses, they're a very different experience once you figure out the strat.
I can't believe this. I've first tried every boss so far. It's pretty good.
Don't jinx it for the easiest boss, which is...
Okay, so now we're moving on to red. And red gets a bit ridiculous in some levels. Wow, that was free. I almost died on the overworld.
Which is the only level, the only overworld where death is possible, and I've witnessed it a few times recently. It's not pretty.
And red has these skull guys that follow you around and are pretty persistent. So in order to speedrun red, you gotta be pretty good at avoiding those guys. They come at you pretty fast.
Yep. So the thing with the skulls and the switches in this is we already have the timers which open the death gates, but some death gates are already open and they're just sitting there. And so there's these keys. Now a key, if you've got a skull chasing you, a key can be mapped to the skull and the death gate. So if you want to make the level a little easier and just skip a pigment, you can grab the key and it will destroy the skull. But it will close the gate. So some casual strategies involve just getting the key, killing the skull, and ending the level with maybe 3 or 4 pigments and moving on. But if you want a 5 pigment a level, you have to avoid the key and get the pigments with the skull chasing you, which is significantly harder. And that was a pretty good run of the first half of this level, which is very
I think
difficult wall jumping.
I think this level is the hardest in the game, personally. And that was okay.
Yeah, that was a nice one.
Okay, Ruby Way.
In this one, we have another example of getting to a minecart and activating it before you come back.
I have a $5 donation here from Neve29, who says, "Hey Tej, good luck on the run."
Thank you, Neve. Very much appreciated, man. Thank you.
Patience. This is one of my favorite red levels.
And patience is indeed required for this level.
And there was recently a new record for the individual level in this one. It was absolutely insane, done by
Oh my god.
a certain person in the chat, or at least he was in the chat. The good doctor.
The good doctor. Yeah, Midge is pretty insane with the ILs. I don't know how he gets some of the times he gets. I'll just stick here. I'll just stick to full game runs.
Yeah.
I'm not coming after those ILs anytime soon.
We never assumed would be possible. So if you look at the leaderboards, you'll see most of them are owned by Midge for the individual levels, and the speedrun community mostly consists. It's pretty small, but mostly consists of folks who either run ILs or who game. Some do both. Like Mr. Tizan, who's the Vulture King.
The Vulture King. This is another pretty tough level. The first half is hard, and then you get to the second half and makes the first half look easy. Yeah, so timing your jumps on these walls in accordance with the fireballs shooting out of them can be pretty challenging for the second half of that level.
Yep, first try. Nice.
This level's fun.
The beginning of this level can be very difficult in a casual playthrough. These he just got through it first try, but the springboards there are pretty tight and packed. And in hard mode, there's even more spikes, so you gotta have a lot of precision control over your character.
Man, that would have been nice.
Yeah, the other reason we don't see a lot of hard mode speed runs and hard mode included speed runs is that the deaths are so brutal.
The deaths are very timely. They're
Some of
very
the
costly, I should
levels
say.
are very long. Yep. So since there's no checkpoints if you die at the very end of a hard mode level, then you got to go back to the very beginning. They can just kill a run in one level.
It's fine. Alright. This level can be my nemesis sometimes.
Yeah, that last one can be tough because it's very backloaded on the pigments.
So I need to hit that timer to open a gate at the top and then get these all in time. I'm gonna need to go up there first, actually. It's fine, whatever. Okay. Okay, and here's the final boss. Okay, so as soon as on this boss, assuming we first try it, as soon as we grab the last key, there are going to be a series of 8 keys that we need to get here. Like this key is going to make the skull disappear. On the last key, that's when time is.
This is going to end up being very close to the IGT world record.
It should be a 38, I think.
Yeah, IGT is 37:42. So we won't get it, but pretty close. Very solid run.
Considering how bad the start was, I'm actually very happy with that. Purple was awful. And blue wasn't that great either. But green and red were really good.
Yep. You may get the red record. We also track, so in-game time tracks individual levels, world, an entire game for each category. Any percent no hard mode, and 100%.
Yeah, Inferno, which is the name of this boss, is very cycle based. So basically, if you do the same exact thing every time on this boss, he will also do the same exact thing every time. So I go yellow, red, or like just barely inside to outside, and then for the last one I go red, yellow, because that last skull can be in a weird position if you go yellow, red. Okay, and time coming up very soon, and time.
Awesome.
3816 IGT. That should be somewhere around 43 RTA. The first half wasn't that great, but the second half was probably the best I've played the second half, actually.
It is an official RTA world record.
It might be.
Yeah, RTA is 44:39.
Yeah. So, RTA world record.
There we go. You were all witness.
I have 43:01 on the timer, but I definitely stopped it late because I was not at all prepared.
Oh, I got you. Sorry
Because
about
you're about 9 minutes underestimate here.
Yeah, I didn't expect the run to actually go that well in the second half. Cool.
Awesome. Well, very nice run, and thanks for everybody for watching and supporting the game and Tej and everything.
Yeah, seriously, thank all you guys. Thank all you guys for watching, and again, thank you to Lort for co-commentating and for helping make an amazing game, as well as Manern. Thank you guys very much, Backcountry Games. Thank you to Rezi, Seathorn, and everybody else who is heading and helping out with this marathon. You guys are awesome.
For sure. And this is the any percent ending. There's a 100% ending as well, which we won't see, but That's the game. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for commentating, and thanks Tej for running.
My pleasure.
Up
Thanks.
next,